there, Stampers. This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations, and I'm here today with another Facebook Live. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm going to be showing you how to make this beautiful card today. And of course, all of the supplies I'm using are all going to be Stampin' Up! Related, and they can all be purchased in my online store. You can find me at queenbeecreations.net, and there's obviously a Shop Now button there and lots more ideas. So you want to make sure that you pop on over there and take a look at my blog and maybe even look at the video gallery or the photo gallery. There's lots and lots of ideas. I want to thank you for joining me today. We're making this card today. It's kind of a fancy fold, and it's showcasing this beautiful die cut here in the middle. And that's a series of die cuts that actually are pretty easy to put together, but they can be a little intimidating, so I wanted to make sure that I show you guys how to use those. So we're going to want to start out, of course, with a card base. We're going to go 8.5 by 5.5, but don't score that yet. Hang on a second, we've got some fancy little scores to do. Of course, we need a piece of the petal pink to go with it, and then I have some Mossy Meadow green, and I've got the adhesive sheet stuck to the back. Our adhesive sheets are double-sided adhesive, and they come in like double-sided tape in big sheets, and so I have it adhered to the back side, and I'm going to peel off the second part after we die cut. That's the fun of this stuff. It makes our leaves are going to be stickers, much easier to put together. You're also going to want a scrap of, this is basic gray, you can also use black. And then I used our Stitched So Sweetly dies to create this rectangle that I'm going to be using in the middle of our card. And it's actually just under 3 inches and just over 4. So I mean, you could cut this yourself, you could use your regular dies, but I just thought the scallop on there with the little stitching was just beautiful. So I'm using this die. You can straight cut it or you can use the dies. We're also going to be needing a 1 inch by 2 3/4 inch piece of designer series paper. You want 2 of those, and then one that is 1 inch by 5 1/4. And so you can use these with any colors, any dies. I mean, if you figure out this fold, you can do this in any number of colors with different designer series papers, different bundles, like all kinds of stuff you can do with this. So just hang on to the measurements when you get them, because there's lots you can do. Like I said, we're using the prized Peony. So I have some of my dies are already out because we're going to be using them. And then this is the stamp set that goes with it. You know, you can use the old magnetic base plate with this machine. I did run the other plates through it. I want to preface that with saying you might want to get the new one though. Our new magnetic base plate is going to have continuous magnet all the way across, and it's going to be self-healing. So you're going to put your dies directly onto this, you know, your paper and then your die directly onto your self-healing magnetic plate. And you're going to be able to run it through, because there's not going to be that one layer of clear plastic between the two. It's going to cut a little better, and the self-healing is fabulous. And it's continuous magnet all the way across. Our old magnetic platform, as much as I loved it, it worked great with your larger dies. But if you came in there with a little bitty die, they had a tendency to move, because the old one had circular magnets placed all over. And there were quite a few of them, and they did hold very well, but they were small circles spread around. So no more jumping magnets. You're going to be able to put it down where you want it, and it's going to stay there. So kind of that's the long answer. Yes, you can use the old one. You probably won't want to. Okay, let's go back to our card. That was our die cutting. now we're going to come in with our card base. This is where I said, you know, hang on, don't get real excited and start cutting into this right away or folding it, because the score lines are different. Hopefully you can read this. But we're going to score it in the middle, but we're going to have this gap on the side that's going to go in 1¼ inch from each side, and then 1¼ up from the bottom up to the 5½. So I'll show you how this works, but if you want to take a screenshot, those are the measurements, and the blue lines are cut and the purple lines are score. And that will make more sense. Again, I want to remind you, on our trimmer, you want to put a strip of our tear and tape behind here. Our tear and tape is this roll of double-sided tape. And normally we would, you know, pull this out, put it onto something, and we would peel the backing off. Don't peel the back off. Just use this, put it behind there, and leave the backing on. That's going to make reading the measurements along here much easier. You're also going to take note that there's a little line in the middle of this. That's going to be exactly where the blade is. And so when I do my measurements, I'm going to line up where I want it. I'm going to put that line where I want it on the measuring stick. Okay, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to put it at 1¼ and I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to not let this go down. I'm going to use my finger to hold it up, but I'm going to line up my little marker with the 5½. So I'm going to push down, which will start my cut at 5½. And I'm going to go down till the little line lines up with 1¼ down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to lift this up. So then my cut is only partial. Does that make sense? You following me so far? We're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same thing. Now make sure that your, you know, 5½ and your 1¼ are the same sides. You wouldn't want to flip it, you know, this way, because then they wouldn't be even. You want this to mirror on the other side. So I'm going to put this at 1¼ on the bottom. I'm lining it up before I let it touch. I've got it at 1¼ over here, and I'm going to push down. So I'm going to start at 1¼ and go up to 5½. So now I've got the two. We're going to start with our scoring. Now make sure you have your scoring blade. That's going to be the lighter one. Don't accidentally cut it, as I have done in the past. Now we're going to put this up at 4¼ and we're going to bring our scoring tool down. And now we're going to do kind of the same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line my little markup here with the 4¼ and I'm at 4¼ over here, and I'm going to come down to 1¼ So I'm only scoring in the middle. See, so the middle is only scored right here. It's not scored on the outside edges. Then I'm going to take and put this back in at 1¼ and then I'm going to start from the top and I'm going to come in until I line up with this line. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to go up until I hit that line. So now what I've done is I've scored on this side and this side, but not in the middle. Now I'm going to do the same thing again at 2½. Score on the bottom, lift, score on the top, and then I'm going to do it at 5½. So score, lift, score, And it gets super easy from here. So once you have these score lines, you're set. We're golden from here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is going to make a mountain fold out of these two, a valley fold out of these two, and then a mountain out of these three. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm pretty good and lined up at the bottom. I should be if all my measurements were correct. And then I'm going to bring in my bone folder and I'm going to burnish those score lines. And there's our card base. So see, it may look complicated, but it's really not. Okay, so for the card base, we're going to bring in our designer series paper. Like I said, this is 1 inch by 5 1/4. And you could use Stamp and Seal, you could use liquid glue, whatever you want. You could also make this 1 1/8 by 5 3/8, and it would have a much smaller border around the outside edge. I try to keep things in 1/4 inch for the video, but I think it'd be really pretty if it had a smaller border. So if you went 1 1/8 by 5 3/8, you'd have a smaller border around the outside edge. And then these are right now, they're 1 by 2 3/4, so I could keep with the 1/4 inch everybody likes. But if you went 1 1/8 by 2 7/8, they would have the tighter border. And then I'm going to stick these right here. And then that rectangle I was talking about earlier, that's what's going to mount right here on the front. Now I've talked about the Stamp and Seal before. This is our new adhesive. You want to make sure as you're using it that you roll a little bit and then you like flick a little bit, because you want to make sure you give it a little more snap, because look, if you don't snap it, that it doesn't cut off. So see how there's still adhesive? Because it's so strong, it doesn't want to let go. So you have to like break it in order to get it to come off. So it does work really well. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. So if you get some and it frustrates you, let me know and I'll work with you, because there is a little bit of a learning curve and I want you to love what you do. So I want to keep your stamping experience completely stress-free. So we can do a little Zoom session. I can, you know, talk you through it. And if you still have issues, of course, we'll make something else happen. I'll get you liquid glue or whatever. But I do think you're going to like the Stamp and Seal. It does give a much stickier adhesion than the snail did, which is a good thing. When we make our cards, they should stay together, right? Okay, now we're on to the fun part. Now we get to put together our flower. So I'm going to bring in the pieces. And so it's going to go from the largest to the smallest as we line them up. And then I want you to take note of this little hump right here. Do you see the little notch? There's a little notch in each one. And so that's what's going to tell you how we line these up, is there's a little notch that we're going to make match. And then the leaves have some detail to them. And they can be cut out of a different color. This one, I didn't want the leaves to take priority. I wanted them to kind of be in the background, so I did cut them out of the same color. And they're still going to look pretty, and they're still going to give some dimension. It is definitely worth doing. And when you use the adhesive sheets, it's also very clean. It doesn't get messy as if you were using the liquid glue and needed the fine tip and all of that. So before you get started, I mean, a lot of people get to this point and they jump in and they go, okay, I'm ready to make my flower. You can do that. It looks beautiful. You might want to consider a little bit of the bone folder, a little bit of ink, and we're going to pretty it up. So I'm going to come in with a sponge dauber and the same color that the paper is. This is our petal pink paper. I've got our petal pink ink. And so I'm going to dab a little bit of this on a sponge dauber, and I'm going to do the edges on this one. On the others I did the middles, but let's just do edges on this one so I can show you the difference. But you just want to give it a little bit of color, because if you look at a flower outside, they're not always exactly the same shade all the way across. They may have a little bit of interest to them, you know, a varying of shades. I'm going to make this one darker on the edges because I think that will look pretty. And I'm going to do that to all of them. See how there's that little pocket in there that some goes forward, some goes back? I'm going to put a little bit on the front section, which is the lower part of what's here. This weekend we had our leadership summit with Stampin' Up. I was blessed to be able to be a part of that. We were camping, so it was a little tricky. It ended up falling over my husband's birthday, and at first I went, oh, this is perfect. It was supposed to be in New Orleans. And I thought, you know, I'll just take my husband, we'll bring some friends, we'll celebrate his birthday New Orleans style. And then COVID hit. And so the whole thing was online. So while we were camping, I fired up my cell phone and my laptop and was trying to watch it from a distance. Thankfully, a lot of it's going to be recorded and I'll be able to pop in and watch that. But we went out to Bear Lake, Utah. Bear Lake kind of straddles over between Utah and Idaho. So there's two sides to the lake, but it is crystal clear blue water. It was just gorgeous. And we went to the Minnetonka Caves, 888 stairs. We went down 444 and went up 444. We had quite the workout. And then we also spent a day horseback riding. So lots and lots of fun, but now I have lots and lots of videos to catch up on because I have heard fabulous things about Stampin' Up's Leadership Summit, and I'm so excited to be a part of that, and that's thanks to all of you. Thank you for helping me in my business and allowing me to be part of such a wonderful company and a wonderful set of leaders. Okay, so again, we have all of our 4 pieces, and I'm going to start assembling. And so I'm going to start off with the smallest one, and I'm going to take and put that in the pocket of the next size up. So I'm going to separate these two. Oh, hang on. It's a little easier when I give the bone folder a little bit of a flick and soften up this and pull it forward some. So let's do that first. I forgot a step. I got so excited about our camping weekend, I totally forgot a step. But I'm just going to just roll it a little bit. And you have to be very, very careful because there is not much room right here. There's like less than 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch where it overlaps. And we don't want to break that. Of course, you could be more fussy with it if you weren't, people weren't waiting for you on camera. But that's how I noticed that it wasn't sliding in quite as easy because I didn't have it kind of folded out of the way. So back to what I started. We're going to put this piece inside that. Oops. Okay, making sure it goes all the way in. Now this is where I was saying that little notch. I'm going to make the 2 notches line up with one another. Can you see that? I'm going to move it over and make sure that that's lined up. So the bottom should be even all the way across. Again, you probably want to use liquid glue because it gives you that what I call wiggle room. And I'm just using the tiniest amount of glue. You wouldn't want it to ooze out all over the place. And then I'm going to put the other one on top of it and hold them together for a second or two. And now they're stuck. Then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it in the next size. And I'm going to slide that in. And then I'm going to line up the bottoms. So just a teensy bit of glue. And then put this one right over that one, evening up the edge. Okay, so we're this far. Now we're going to do one more. So we're going to take the largest one, and we're going to look for that little notch, and we're going to add a little bit of glue. And there you have it. It's almost complete. Now I say almost because we have this little tiny piece we can stick in the middle. And I have a tendency to want to add a little bit of something to that. So you can either sponge it a little, or you can give it a little bit of Wink of Stella, or you could do both, maybe some glitter. Just something that gives it a little bit of pop. And then you can stick it in the middle. Now you can do this with liquid glue, or you can do this with a glue dot, because the glue dots are like the perfect size to fit right behind this little piece. And then you want to find the center of the smallest flower. Remember I said they all had a little pocket and we didn't put anything in the smallest pocket? This is what goes there. Now you can have it stick out a lot, or you can push it in, or you can have it just barely peek out. It's up to you. Decide how much of it you want to show. Or you could even leave it out, or you could make it in the same color. I mean, there's lots of fun ideas you could do with it. Now, the next thing I did was I took this and adhered it to the front of my card using Stampin' Dimensionals, because I didn't know where to put the leaves, right? You don't really know where the leaves are supposed to go until you have it onto your card. And I wanted to be able to add the leaves second, not first. So I know there's not going to be any leaves across the top of my flower, right? So it's pretty safe to go and put some dimensionals across the top of the flower. Okay, now they're probably not going to stick straight down out of the bottom, right? Pretty safe to say. So I'll take another one and I'll put it right there. So now I've got some evenly spaced dimensionals with plenty of room on both sides to be able to tuck my leaves underneath. So we'll peel off the backs of the dimensionals. And we can place that on here. I mean, you can move it around, you can decide how you think it looks pretty, and adhere it. Then we're going to take our our leaves, and again, we have another little puzzle. Don't panic, not too hard. But you'll notice that they have the leaves have a little bit of a different edge to them. This one is not exactly the same as this one. So you want to find out which solid leaf is going to go with which detail. And it'll be by this edge. See, this has got a little more wiggle, so I want the detail with a little more wiggle. This one's kind of straight, so I want the detail with a little bit of straight. The same thing with the little ones. I'm only using one of the little leaves, and so I made sure that I grabbed the detail and the solid of the same side wiggle. And then I'm going to just, like I said, this is the adhesive sheet was applied before I did my die cutting. So now I can just pick this off. And now it's sticky. And it's the kind of sticky that's not going to get everywhere. Now I need to line it up. Next tricky part, right? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick the bottom part first. I want to make sure that my V down here at the bottom is the first thing I adhere. So the V is adhered, the sides aren't. Follow me? Then I'm going to gently start with each little notch. I'm going to put the first notch down, and then the second notch down, and then the third. And then I can make sure it's stuck and then line up this one. And they're especially more forgiving if you don't quite get it on there right when they're the same color. It becomes a little more important if you wanted to take maybe Mossy Meadow and detail it with some Old Olive. Okay, I'm using my fingernails. If you don't have fingernails, you might want to get out take your pick tool, because you could use the edges of this to pop things off. So there's our 3 leaves. Now I'm ready to add them to the card. So I would pull that over and I would just kind of take a look and see where I think those leaves are going to look good. Kind of maneuver them around. And then when I've got an idea of where I think they're going to look best, then the only thing I have to do is peel off the back and stick it. Because they're stickers. Love my adhesive sheets. Okay, mine's going to hang over a little bit right there. And I know I want to do that. So I may want to take a little bit of baby powder or cornstarch, something. I have here my embossing buddy, and I'm going to just tap this on the back of that leaf that sticks over. And the powder in here is going to make that not sticky, so it won't stick to here. Because I guess I didn't think about that when I made these ones stickers. These ones I adhered, my first one I adhered with glue dots on the bottom. So maybe your solid piece could be glue dots. But if you have a piece that's sticky and I don't want it to be sticky, it's going to mess up my card, or you put a little bit of Stampin' Seal in the wrong place or some snail, you can always use a little bit of powdered bag. Like I said, baby powder, cornstarch, baking soda, anything that's just a little bit of powder that's going to wipe away. It's going to take off that stickiness. So, never mind my boo-boo there. I guess it was my way of showing you a little tip, huh? Let's just call it that. Let's pretend I did that on purpose. Okay, so I'll have to powder this one too. Okay, so see, now I can stick it all the way down, and notice how even though I'm pushing on it, it's not sticking. So I've removed the sticky. Oh, and I probably should have stamped the sentiment first. See? Even us professionals make mistakes. So I can either put that on a little label, or I can chance it and try to stamp this way. Probably want to make sure I don't have any edges. I don't want a halo. So just a gentle tap, tap, tap. Then I'm going to go right here. Up. And I missed a little bit of the L. So if I was to do something like this, another example is you can take a label. You can pull out your dies or your labels, and you can put something right over the top of it. See, I just missed a little of the L. Or you could say it's hand stamped. That's my little bit of imperfection, right? I'm making like the Amish quilters, and I'm leaving one little mistake for you to find. Did you know they do that, Amish quilters, and every time they make a quilt, they put a mistake in it on purpose because they believe that the only thing that's perfect is God. So there's my little imperfection. And if you wanted to, you could finish that off with a few little embellishments. I have here some pearls. You can use rhinestones, sequins, anything you wanted to just give it a little bit of a pop. I'm going to do 5 because, again, I've been told by designers that things go in odd numbers. So you would do 3, 5, 7, odd numbers of things. So there's our finished card. Now you can also, if you wanted to, put a little rectangle on the back here for your message, or maybe here for your message. You know, it's up to you, or you can just write on the back of the card. But that's our little prized peony. Sponged on the inside, sponged on the outside. Which one do you like? So again, thank you for joining me. My name is Lisa. I'm with Queen Bee Creations. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and everything I used in today's card can be purchased on my blog, and you might even get a little PDF with 6 more samples using our prized peony. Thanks for joining me. Bye.